Hey guys, welcome back to more homeowner association stories. In this video, a crazy new HOA neighbor Karen punched me and did not realize that I am actually a police officer. Here is what happened. Let's dive right into the video. And the first one starts like this. So I'd been saving up money for a while to get my wife, myself and our at the time 1-year-old daughter out of a cramped apartment and into a house. We found one at a decent price that was actually right on the border between two neighborhoods technically. There was no big road dividing them and I don't know how it was chosen to be the dividing point anyway. All I knew was one side of my street was one neighborhood and my side was a different one. Not even just a neighborhood, but even the school districts were not the same. I don't know if I got the house cheaper because people don't want to live bordering two neighborhoods, but I didn't mind it. I'm a police officer, but I don't like bringing that part of my life home with me. I see and deal with things and try to leave that at work, so at home I can just be a decent husband and father. Other than that, I honestly consider myself a pretty typical dad, and by the time my daughter is a teenager, she will probably be embarrassed by my cheesy jokes and old navy shorts. Around the same time that we moved in, the house across the street from us also got sold. This woman was a go-getting type of person because I found out that only 2 months living there, she had already managed to get herself on the HOA board. An HOA, I would like to be clear about, is for the neighborhood that I'm not a part of, and hence I'm not an HOA member of it at all. My house was not a dump or anything, and I kept things in order. The lawn got mowed, garbage was taken out regularly, and the bins got put back in the garage, mail was brought in, etc. So it looked more than fine to me, but Karen seemed to take issue with it. I got a letter from her talking about how I was violating HOA rules, and I was not exactly angry with her. I understood that she might be confused that despite being across the street, I was part of a different neighborhood. I decided to go and speak to her. I'm gonna call her Karen because I learned very quickly that her personality qualifies, and from work I've dealt with many Karens. I mean, just look at how many stories here end up with police needing to be called. Sometimes in those situations, the cop that has to show up and deal with the raging spitting Karen. Me, hi there. I got your note and I just wanted to give you a heads up that actually my side of the street is not part of the HOA. It's a different neighborhood. Karen, you just want to get out of paying fines. You need to fix your house or I will start to fine you for every single day. Me, like I said, not a part of the HOA, but I also believe in keeping my yard nice, so there shouldn't be much of an issue here. Karen, those weeds and crap grass are an issue. You need to use chemicals on the lawn to get rid of them. Me, I don't use pesticides on my lawn. My kid plays out there and I don't want her playing in leaves covered in pesticide and then putting them in her mouth or something. The lawn is not overgrown and it's not even noticeable unless you're on the lawn. Karen, I don't care, just fix it. I walked away because I don't want to deal with confrontation when I'm at home and in family mode. I would rather spend time playing with my kid or talking to my wife. Karens cannot be reasoned with anyway, so it would be a waste of breath. Things got worse over time as she was still insistent that I was part of the HOA and breaking the rules. She also thought I was doing it for the sole purpose of making her look bad, as if I did not have enough things to do in my life aside from bothering her. I never pulled out the "I'm a cop" card, since I think it's cheesy and a little power abusive. One day I came home from Costco and parked my car in the driveway instead of the garage. I had a lot of things to bring in and it was easier to use the front door. Diapers and toilet paper both were on sale, so yeah, I had a lot of things to carry. Before I could finish, Karen came running up to me, and I actually thought there was some kind of emergency. I might hate her as a neighbor, but my instinct is to help in that kind of situation. There was no emergency, and instead she started screaming at me how it was against HOA bylaws to park a car in the driveway, and they had to be put in a garage. Now, I don't know even if an HOA is allowed to decide that, but if they can, it's a really dumb rule. My daughter had just gotten over a cold, I worked a double shift before going to the store, and I was just tired and done with her crap. I told her off again, finally getting a little bit angry, but not raising my voice at her. I told her that I was not part of the HOA and I would park my car wherever the hell I wanted to because it was my home, not hers. I then said that I was gonna park it in the driveway every single day and there was nothing she could do to stop me. That was when she made the horrible decision of punching me square in the face. Now, I can take a hit so I didn't go down or anything, but that does not mean it didn't hurt. It was right in my mouth, so anybody would feel that. Finally, at that moment she learned that I was a cop when I pulled out my badge, which I keep on me, and told her that she was under arrest. She didn't believe me either and continued to yell and act like she was in the right right. I did not want to arrest her, I just wanted her to calm down and go back home. Once she tried to throw a second punch, that is when I had to place her under arrest for assault. I had to call for backup since I was not technically on duty, and Karen started yelling at them saying that I was just pretending to be a cop and I should be the one getting arrested. They knew who I was and confirmed to Karen that I was a cop, and she didn't believe them either, and now was convinced that 2 fully uniformed officers in a cruiser were also just pretending to be police. They handcuffed her and brought her into the station. I figured it was in my best interest to go down there despite just wanting to take a nap. She was processed and fought police the entire time it was happening. She did not want to get arrested and fingerprinted, and I found out why fairly quickly. She had a record of assault and battery in the past, which meant this was not gonna look good in court. From what I heard, she did end up pleading guilty to punching me, but tried to argue that it was still my fault for not telling her that I was a cop beforehand. She wanted to come off like I had set her up or something. Police officers don't need to disclose their job to people in their personal lives if they don't want to. Due to her history that went back for quite a while, she was not getting off with nothing happening. Past issues only led to community service or probation. Since she clearly was not learning her lesson, and it being a cop that she punched, she was gonna spend a few months in prison for that. In the meantime, I guess she couldn't keep paying for her house because it was back on the market only about 8 months after she had initially moved in. I don't know if that's some kind of record or not, but I think it's a neat fact. Moral of the story, maybe just don't punch anybody and listen when they say that they are not part of your HOA. And the next one is titled, "Am I the a-hole for implying my friends are being cheap over my wedding?" And by the way, if you have watched until here and enjoy the HOA stories, then please don't forget to like the video and maybe even leave a comment, because that would help me tremendously. Thank you so much for your support. So this one starts like this. I, 38 female, am marrying my fiance, 38 male, next year. I'm the last of my friends to get married, and honestly, I had made peace with being single and getting a dog before I met my fiancé. I'm part of a group of 6 girlfriends who have all known each other since college. We've been through everything together: breakups, holidays, weddings, babies, promotions, etc. When I told them that I got engaged, they seemed happy and sent me congratulation messages, but when everyone else got engaged, they threw them parties or went out for dinner to celebrate, and they didn't in my case. I gave them nearly a year's notice on my bachelorette party, which I'm keeping low-key as I don't want a big thing. We are going for dinner and drinks at one of my favorite restaurants in our city. However, slowly all of my friends have been dropping out, saying they cannot get a babysitter, or they have to work late, or they are on a work trip. I've obviously invited them all to the wedding as well, which again is a small affair, and one has already messaged the group chat saying that she's not sure she can get a babysitter for that day. My wedding is months away, and I'm finding it really hard to believe that she knows that far in advance. 2 others have also said they are not gonna stay for the reception as they will be tired by then. So here is where I may be the a-hole. The straw that broke the camel's back was when I sent the link to the registry. My fiancé and I already have a house together, so we are asking for mostly small things. Nothing goes beyond $50, and we are delighted with anything that anyone chooses to buy us. They sent a message into the chat saying they were going to band together to get me an air fryer as a group gift. It costs $40, so I was a bit surprised that they seemed to be chipping in about $8 each. Over the years, I must have spent thousands of dollars on their weddings, 2 of which were overseas. I have attended dinners and brunches to celebrate their job promotions, bought gifts for their babies, all the while feeling terrible about myself watching my friends celebrate the happiness I never thought I would get. I sent a message just asking for clarification if it was all of them buying it together, and one replied asking if I was calling them cheap, and then there has been dead silence since. That really was not my intention, but it really feels like it, because I'm last, they are just over having to do these events, and it's really feeding into my insecurity at getting married so late. But they do have legitimate reasons for these things. They all have lives, kids, and maybe not as much money as when we were a bit younger, and maybe I'm just letting my insecurities get in the way. So Reddit, am I the a-hole here? A user in the comments said, not the a-hole, these people are not your friends. And by the way, Ripe Stars, let me know what you think about this in the comments. Do you think OP is being the a-hole here, or are his friends really being a little bit cheap? Let me know what you think about this story and which side you're on. Then this person in the comments further said, find a new friend group. Oh, and by the way, they are cheap. Another person said, yeah, these people don't like OP. She's not picking up on it for some reason though. Another person said, OP seems to be what I call the leftover friend. Basically, that one awkward person that has been in your group forever, but is not really anybody's friend. Aside from maybe the one girl who brought her into the group in the first place. And damn, by the way, Riper Stars, I have to say, Reddit sometimes is absolutely brutal. But I guess that is just the anonymity of the internet. People are really blunt and straightforward. Weddings, baby showers and birthdays are the perfect time for everyone else to be like Jerry Seinfeld with hands up, I don't want to be around here, I'm 40 years old, can I just not go to a party? Another person said, I was willing to consider for a bit that maybe having kids made things different now from when they were all getting married, but buying an air fryer as a group gift? That's cheap. The worst part is actually the cheapness, someone else said. If you're asking for all this understanding and compromise from one friend when being singled out and given zero effort, the least thing anyone can do to make up for that is get the most awesome gift as a, sorry I didn't make the effort to come, here's something to make up for it a bit. What they have shown now is that they don't want to make an effort on her at all, and also they don't want to spend money on her at all. I had sent this post to the group chat and then said my goodbyes, including, don't bother with the air fryer, I've had more hot air by now than I can handle in a lifetime. Not the a-hole. Another person said, your friends are not actually really friends in the definition, they are acquaintances. This happens quite often. People have lives and they may still remain in contact with you, but you're not their go-to. You're very generous and they have benefited from that. It reminds me of Sex and the City Season 6 Episode 9, A Woman's Right to Choose. Update. I did not think I would have an update to give, but I wanted to repay everyone's kindness. Some people said some really lovely and helpful things, and first off, I wanted to clarify a few questions that were asked. I did not care at all what they bought us as a gift. I did not care if they got us a gift at all. It was never about the air fryer. I really was not calling them cheap, I was just clarifying if it was coming from all of them. I also didn't ask if they were getting us a gift, they brought this up themselves. I could not put my finger on why it made me feel a bit weird. I think the word I was searching for was disrespect. Someone said an $8 gift is worse than no gift, and I think that's the heart of it. The money issue came up as well. As far as I know, all of my friends are fairly solvent. We all work in the finance field, mostly as accountants. 3 are very senior in their firms and all of their husbands have good jobs. But we never discuss money, and I know kids and the cost of living is high at the moment, so I would never want to assume anyone's financial status, but honestly, everyone seems okay. The other issue was a lot of people ask how often we see each other, and the answer is quite regularly. We made a pact years ago to meet up at least once a month, no matter how crazy life gets, and we've mostly been able to stick to that. The 6 of us usually meet for Sunday brunch. Apart from that, I live in the same neighborhood as 2 of them, so we do dinner occasionally, and parties for their kids, etc. are a must. The last question was, my wedding is not child-free, and it is in our city. I love kids, and my friends' kids are surrogate nieces and nephews to me, and they are all invited. The friend who said she couldn't find childcare said that she didn't want to bring her kids because she said weddings are easier without them. Lastly, some suggested that they don't like my fiancé, and they've never given me that impression. Everyone seems to get on well enough, and they've known him for 2 years, and he occasionally even goes golfing with some of their husbands. Now onto the update though, reading the comments was like having cold water thrown over me. I've never considered myself the outsider friend, but a lot of people suggested that I was, and it really threw me and I got really overwhelmed. I didn't send any messages to the group chat, even though lots of commenters gave me really good suggestions about what to write, and I withdrew into myself until my fiancé prized it out of me what was wrong. I showed him this post and he got super quiet and really angry. I've never seen him this angry over anything else. He asked if I had spoken to them about this and I said no. He started to call them individually and read them the riot act. He called them $8 a-holes and said that he would be sending them an itemized list of the thousands of dollars I had spent on them over the years. He called BS on the one who said that she couldn't get a babysitter, and she indeed said that she was sick of having to go to the same boring wedding over and over, and yours won't be any different, and then he lost it at her. I hate the idea of him fighting my battles for me, so I asked him to stop after the 3rd person. I sent a message into the group chat asking if we could all speak as a group, and the 3 he called sent voice messages saying that my fiancé was a psycho and that they wouldn't speak to me anymore. I just felt really tired and defeated, so I sent a message saying that if they didn't want to be friends anymore, that was fine, and to consider their invitations withdrawn to the bachelorette and wedding. No one has replied, so I guess we are done. I suppose I'm better off, but I don't feel that way way, I just feel numb and sad. They've been such a big part of my life for so long, and I really feel the loss, and I'm so sad that I won't see their kids anymore. Some of them refer to me as an auntie, and it's making me cry that I won't see them grow up. My fiance has apologized for rushing in and for not asking me how I wanted to handle it, and I've accepted. We are good, and I'm looking forward to our life together. I mostly wanted to say thank you to the kind Redditors that showed me the light about this and offered congratulations on our wedding and even offered us to buy a gift. I've never watched Sex and the City, but I'll watch the episode some people mentioned. It seems like I'll relate. I'll delete this post soon. I just want to put this behind me now. And now let's move on to the next story. It starts like this. Living in the suburbs had its ups and downs, but the pros definitely outweighed the cons. The best part was the amount of trees on each property. Almost all the houses in my area would be built on large properties, each with very old trees. These were ancestral properties passed down through generations. A lot of my neighbors had chosen to cut down at least half the trees that stood on their land for various reasons, but I absolutely refused to do so myself. And by the way guys, OP posted a ridiculous amount of identifying information that would pretty much exactly tell us where he lives, so obviously I won't show that on YouTube. Anyway, I often found myself strolling through the leaf-strewn paths feeling a deep connection to the land and its history. One tree in particular held a special place in my heart, an ancient oak that stood majestically at the far end of my property. Its gnarled branches reached out like arthritic fingers as if grasping onto memories of bygone eras. Under that old oak, I would spend countless afternoons with a worn-out book, immersing myself in fantastical worlds, escaping the humdrum of reality. But it was not just about the beauty and serenity they provided. These trees were vital to the ecosystem, fostering a delicate balance that supported a diverse array of wildlife. Birds of various species called their branches home, singing joyous melodies to the rising sun each morning. Squirrels and chipmunks would dart playfully among the foliage, while rabbits and other small creatures found shelter and sustenance within the thick undergrowth. Despite the allure of preserving these magnificent trees, pressure from modernity loomed on the horizon. Some of my neighbors, enticed by the allure of bigger houses and extensive gardens, succumbed to the temptation of cutting down the trees that once graced their properties. I empathized with their desires for change and growth, but the thought of sacrificing the legacy of these age-old sentiments weighed heavily on my heart. While I understood most of my neighbors when they chose to cut down a few trees, there was one that always pissed me off. The person who lived on the property right next to mine was something out of a nightmare. He had zero regard for nature or history, and a few other tree huggers and I tried talking to him when we noticed that he was cutting down too many trees from his property. However, it was his own property and all we could do was try and explain to him why we need the trees. Unsurprisingly, he completely ignored us, and before we knew it, the last tree on his property was cut down just so he could make money from the wood instead of actually getting a job. The loss of that final tree on his property felt like a dagger in my heart. I could not help but feel angry and disappointed in my neighbor's short-sightedness and disregard for the natural world. Once more, I reminded myself that it was his property and therefore it was not my place to tell him what he can and cannot do. I learned to let it go. I generally try not to run into him so I wouldn't have to put up with his unbearable opinions, but living right next to him made that a little hard. I lost count of the numbers of ageist remarks I've had to put up with. The worst part was his temper. He was unnecessarily violent. I once saw him throw stones at squirrels simply because he was bored. When he kept missing, he lost his temper and brought out his gun and began shooting at the tree. For someone with such horrible aim, he was annoyingly confident about carrying a gun. Our paths would occasionally cross during community events or when running errands around the neighborhood. Each encounter was a challenge in patience and restraint. Despite my best efforts to remain calm, he would often take pleasure in provoking me with his ageist comments and derogatory views. At times I questioned whether engaging in a confrontation was worth it, however, I refused to sink to his level, knowing that responding to his aggression with anger would only perpetuate a cycle of hostility. Despite how hard I tried to avoid conflict, he managed to do something that shattered my patience. I'm usually a deep sleeper, and it's unlikely that any sound would wake me up in the middle of the night, but one particular night, I vaguely remember a loud thud sound. It sounded like it came from my backyard, but a part of me felt like it was all a dream and I went back to bed. In the morning, I meant to go check if the sound was real, but I was late for work and left in a hurry. All the stress from running from one place to another made me completely forget to go check on my backyard. That night I heard the sound again. I couldn't ignore it anymore. A sound loud enough to wake up someone like me had to be real. I grabbed a jacket and rushed out to investigate. To my horror, one of my trees lay on the ground and there were 2 more stumps right behind from what had gotten cut to the previous night. I looked up and saw my neighbor getting ready to cut the oldest oak tree. I shouted and threatened to beat his ass up if he didn't leave immediately. He lowered his axe but looked extremely pissed. He pulled out his phone and called the cops on me for threatening him. I was bewildered. This was my property and these trees also belonged to me. If anyone had the right to call the police, it was me. I told him this and asked him to get off my property immediately. I didn't know how it was possible, but his frown got deeper and he looked even angrier than before. In one quick motion, he grabbed his gun, raised it up towards me and fired it. The loud sound made me shut my eyes. I could hear the sounds of rattled birds flying away and then I felt the pain in my arm. Somehow it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. I finally turned to look at my shoulder and I saw that the bullet had barely grazed me. My shoulder bled, but the wound was so small that I barely felt it. I looked up at him and saw how his entire body was shaking as he held the gun really tight. It was extremely obvious that despite carrying a gun, this was the first time he managed to hit something. Even if it was very little, the blood seemed to make him nervous. I used this moment of weakness to pounce on him. Within no time at all, he was knocked out. Soon, the cops arrived too. I explained the situation to them, and it was very obvious that he was the one at fault. They arrested him as soon as he gained consciousness. I was devastated by the loss of my trees. Some of them were easily worth at least $30,000, but more importantly, I would never get that exact same tree back. Each of them meant so much to me, and they were so rich in history. There was no way I was going to let him get away with destroying my backyard. I pressed charges and he was sent to jail for trespassing and destruction of private property. Additionally, I called over an arborist to get an estimate of how much the trees that were cut are worth. It was a shocking $120,000. I sued him and made him pay the fine. Even after he gets out of prison, I knew for a fact that life would not be easy for a person too lazy to work, especially with no trees left to sell. Edit: I forgot to mention he of course is also not only in trouble for trespassing and destroying my property, but also actually having tried to kill me. I doubt he will come out of prison anytime soon. And yeah guys, with this we have reached the end of the video. However, if you cannot get enough of my content, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel to not miss any of my daily uploads. And also check out my podcast by searching for Ripe Stories on Spotify, Amazon, Audible and other podcast platforms. You will often find exclusive episodes and early access to new content. Furthermore, please check out my Patreon by going to patreon.com/ripeyoutube or my YouTube membership program for even more exclusive stories. Thank you so much and I will see you again tomorrow.